What's going on, everybody? This is Warren Dews. I'm the publisher of the Greenville Pioneer and the Ravenna News Herald. I'm coming to you today under the umbrella of the community conversations that we do. We've created this a couple of months ago, and we have several segments that we do. We have one called Get to Know, Ask the Expert, and Meet Your Neighbor. Today, we are doing the segment of Get to Know. So I have a new friend here, and friend, who are you? Tell me who you are. What's your name?
Melissa Hurt.
So Melissa, what do you do? What do you do? What is your business?
I am the owner of Integrative Studio based in Del Mar, New York, but my operations are online and serving the world.
So, one of the things that people need to know is that you are now also working with us on a column. Your columns will be coming out on a monthly basis. And you and I were going back and forth with, it was funny, with text on what we're going to call the column. So one of the things, what was one of the things you said you wanted to call it? The first one you said, what was it again?
Living Vibrantly.
Okay.
Is
And then
the
we were
first
going,
one.
it was the first one. So that's the one that's coming out in the paper actually this week. It's going to be out this week on Thursday and Friday in our papers. So when you hear this recording, go look for it this Thursday and Friday. But if you hear the recording afterwards, you can find it in our papers online on our websites. So, Melissa, tell me about Integrative Studio. What do you do? What is that about?
Integrative Studio is a place where people come to basically shed the layers of who they have had to be at some point in their life so that they can become their true, free, authentic, vibrant self. It tends to happen through our lives that we just take on more and more, and we have to adapt to different circumstances in different ways. And then before we know it, we've lost track of who we really are and how we truly want to be. And sometimes this will manifest as a body that's always in aches and pains. It might be a spiritual funk. It might be a disconnect between people you love, maybe feeling like you're stuck and you don't know how to really connect and have fun with the people that you love that you used to have a lot of fun with. Or it might be a vocal quality that's become really retracted in your voice. So you feel like you can't even feel or hear your own voice anymore. Now, this does not mean that I'm serving people who really have clinical depression, although all of those things I described can manifest in depression. And in that case, you would need to see a doctor, a psychiatrist, a medical professional to help you. I serve people who have exhausted those things, but they just feel like something is not on track. And what I do is I bring them a toolbox of different practices and customized self-care so that they can get to know themselves deeply, fully, love themselves, and feel vibrant again.
So what got you into this kind of work?
It is so funny because I'll tell you a little bit about my story. So I was that girl in high school who was super smart.
Mm-hmm.
I was that girl in high school who was super quiet and friends with everybody. I was friends with everybody. I was the girl who found theater in high school, and it was through theater that I found a certain level of freedom within myself because now I was playing different characters, and I felt like that gave me agency to express myself in different ways. And something about the theater just really lit me up. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the actor's process, which is incredibly creative and incredibly intelligent. And I liked using both sides of my brain. I loved the creative process, which is really intense, but also you're deeply committed to creating something because on that 28th day or whatever the process, the audience is showing up and you need to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just fell in love with all of that. I went to college for theater. I was acting, I was directing. When I graduated from college, I was doing it professionally in Washington, D.C. Then I got my master's of fine arts in directing, became a professor. Then I got my PhD and focused on acting theory and just, fully dove in to the topic of what it means to perform, to create character. Because really what's at the heart of creating a character is getting to know yourself deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but through that process, because I was going through all of these really rigorous programs and I was an actor, so I had to go in front of casting directors and producers and all different types of people. And you have to like be on in the moment. You have 2 minutes with this person, if that, to really give them everything you've got. But sometimes you can lose yourself in that process, ironically. And so when I was 30 years old and I was getting my PhD, I just felt really anxious. I felt like my mind was filled with monkeys, like rattling the cage all the time. Like I always had like just stuff going
Mhm.
on. And so then I came into yoga and realized after about a month of a weekly class that I remember very clearly getting out of my car, and I had to run some errands after class to hit up the grocery store. And as I was walking to the store, I was like, wow, the sky looks so different. And I was trying to figure out like, what is different about the sky? And then I noticed the people around me and they look different too. And then I realized that the sky was not different, the people were not different, I was different. And
Okay.
in that moment, I was not anxious. And I realized that through my yoga practice and my commitment to taking my yoga practice off of the mat to continue to understand myself deeply, I had unraveled the knots of anxiety. And I was, for the first time, probably in my life, truly present with where I was and who I was and what I was doing. And it forever changed me. And then later in that same year, that summer, I did a 4-week intensive in Arthur Lessak's voice, speech, and movement work. That work is based on feeling sensation of your voice and of your body as you're expressing yourself. And so again, it's a more self-study based practice. So I have yoga and then I have this self-study of voice. So like all I'm doing essentially is like diving in. I'm doing the inner work. And it's through those modalities that I became fully present and started to feel amazing again. And taking that with what I knew about performance training, as here I am getting my PhD in it, that I was like, I've got everything I need to completely embody myself again. And I use that word intentionally. No, I was not literally disembodied. My head was on my body, but
Hmm.
we feel disembodied. We feel like we don't know what we're doing. We are running errands, and then before we know it, we don't even remember what we did 10 minutes ago because we're filled with like, the chatter in the mind. So yeah, I discovered that complete transformation myself through my practices and started sharing them with people. And
So,
so I started my business. I started working with people in this way probably 11 years ago or so, and been teaching it at the college level, teaching voice classes for performers and voice and speech, and then teaching yoga for all kinds of people of all different abilities. And all of these different practices and different types of people, some of them became my private students who I would customize a certain practice for. But all this stuff came into becoming Integrative Studio. This is all that I write about on my blog and my books and my YouTube videos. Like everything is for serving this need to feel alive again and get to know who your core self really is.
so while you were talking, I'm sitting here smiling because we can talk offline later. But I went to Fierro H. LaGuardia High School Music and Art, and,
Oh, okay,
and I
cool.
was in New York City. So I totally understand where you're coming from, where the acting and those types of outlets really free you up. I tell people all the
Yeah,
time, if I wasn't singing, so I'm a kid that grew up in the Bronx. If I wasn't singing somewhere and doing those types of things, I would have been involved in other things that were
yeah,
surrounding me. So
yeah.
music and the arts saved my life, basically.
It is the truth. And the other thing that's really beautiful about performing artists is I genuinely believe they're the hardest working people on campus. Not to discredit the hard work that the math majors and the sciences and everyone else is doing. I get it. But you don't know grit until you've met a performing artist. Because not only are we doing all of the coursework that everybody else is doing, but then we're in rehearsal until 10 o'clock, sometimes midnight, And then we have to learn our lines or memorize our blocking or choreography or whatever it is and go and show up for class the next day. Like it goes on and on and on. And so you develop a certain tenacity because you love your craft so much and because you are so committed to storytelling and this drive that has kept civilizations going and evolving since the beginning of time. It is such a huge, huge endeavor. And so there's just a resiliency to artists that is so beautiful. And the irony of that is that artists tend to be very empathetic, sensitive people. And I mean that in the best way possible. So they take on everything that's around them.
Mhm.
And it's because of that that they can also lose themselves because they just want to help and serve everybody. So it becomes a practice to find that self-care, to have those safe and appropriate boundaries, to take care of yourself while nurturing your art, while serving other people through your storytelling.
So, say serving other people. So, can you share an example of how a client had a life transition or transformation from working with you? Like, tell me, what have you done to change people's lives?
Yeah, so I had one woman who came to me. She did a yoga workshop with me. I did yoga for the voice. This was probably 6 years ago.
For the
And
voice, for the voice to show the voice.
yoga, so it's using vocal vibration and
Okay.
using mindful movement to get to know yourself on a deeper level.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. And so she came to that workshop, and then this was when I lived in Washington, D.C. area. And then maybe 2 years ago, she emailed me and said, this is when I lived in upstate New York, I lived in Del Mar. And she says, hi, I did your workshop about 4 years ago, and I never really forgot it. And I was hoping that maybe you could work with me privately. And I honestly didn't remember who she was because I had done a lot of workshops since then, and I just didn't remember her. She didn't come up to me afterward or anything like that. And so I said, well, sure, let me hear more about your story. And so this woman was about 50 years old. She had been, she was, pretty happy in her job. Her husband was telling her that there was something strange happening with her voice, which, let me tell the ladies listening, there's never anything strange happening with your voice if your husband says something to you about your voice. It's something else. Okay, so don't think that there's something deficient in your voice. There's not. And so, but she wanted to kind of come to understand her voice. She's also doing a lot of dental work because she had been a teeth grinder forever and had literally ground down her teeth and needed to get all veneers put in. So she had to learn how to speak with these new articulators in her mouth. So she had a lot of things happening at this particular point in her life. So I was leading her through this embodied voice work. And then she started to love singing out of the blue. She's like, oh, I just really love singing and feeling my voice now. So she was singing more. Now, because she's singing more, she's happier just in her daily life. Because she's happier, her husband is like, your voice sounds really good. There's something happening in your voice. There was nothing happening with her voice. She was just a happy, light, spirited person.
Mm-hmm.
But because of all of this, then COVID happens and the pandemic happens. She loses her job, as unfortunately so many people have. But because she had this newfound confidence in herself through her expressive voice, she was able to put that into words, into reshaping her resume. Because usually what happens is when you cultivate a rich understanding of your speaking voice, your written word gets sharper too. It works in tandem. And so she updated her resume, sent it out to a major organization in Washington, D.C. And because she felt really confident in her voice, she totally nailed her job interview. She actually wrote little Post-it notes of little voice images and words that we had gone through in our coaching together to kind of remind her of what to do to stay on track with like feeling really great while she spoke. She did all of that and she got the job. And so here she is, maybe a year into working with me. She's having a great time in her life as an individual. She's got this great marriage. She's landed a job like a month into the pandemic that was better pay and more in line with what she really wanted to do anyway, all because she started to really come to appreciate who she was by developing a stronger, clearer voice. Because your physical voice is really a reflection of your inner voice and your spirit and your intuition. It's all connected.
So tell me, how can people get in touch with you to get this help?
Well, they can go to my website, which is melissahurt.com. And you can read my story. I've got lots of free resources on my website. I have a blog, and then I have a page called Life Resources or How To. So just lots of different types of articles that they can read. I have a YouTube channel that they'll find at the footer of my website with tons of free videos with meditations and mindful movement practices and voice practices. And I have online courses on my website that they can explore and learn more. And if they really want to have a deep, deep dive, they can contact me through my website. Everything is on my website, melissahurt.com.
All right, and we'll definitely have that in the Facebook post. So Melissa, we're coming up on our end of our conversation.
Oh.
And so tell me one thing, just one thing that really can get people to call you. Like really, if they really want to change their life, what's the one thing that you can help them with?
Wow. I think the biggest thing about really wanting to change your life, there's so much. It really depends on what needs changing. A lot of times we're just stuck in a rut.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to teach, there's 10 guidelines in a yogic lifestyle, which is really a lifestyle of like the highest integrity. And the first one is being kind and loving to all people, including yourself. And the second one is being very truthful and real. So my first guideline for anybody is, are you willing to get real with yourself and your life through a lens of kindness? Now that's tough, because sometimes when people are getting real, they're very critical and they're mean to themselves. You don't do that with me. I don't take that. You have to be kind and compassionate to yourself, while also taking radical responsibility for your choices and who you are and what you've done. So we work through all of that to then discover what are the habits that are holding you back, what are the habits that are going to propel you forward, and what can you do to enhance those good habits, to find better habits so that you're stacking your day with habits that are keeping you on track for living your best life. But the first step is get real and be kind to yourself.
That's deep. That's really deep. So listen, everybody, once again, I want to thank my new friend, Melissa. And if you want to be a part of this with our community conversations, you can reach out to me at wdewsjr@gmail.com. That's WDEWSJR@gmail.com, or call me at 413-212-0130. I thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I thank our listeners and readers for taking the time to listen to this, because this is amazing. This really, I think, could change lives.
Can I share one more thing, Warren?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you go to my website, go ahead and sign up for my newsletter, because I send a newsletter every month with tips and wellness, but you'll get a freebie with videos included. That's like a daily practice that you can go through to get yourself on track. So again, go to melissahurt.com, sign up for my freebie. And then when you're on my list, you'll be the first to know of a really amazing program that I have coming out in 2021 that I'm not going to talk about now, but you'll be the first to know about it. So get on my email list to get that freebie and get started.
And or read her in our papers, because she will be in our papers on a monthly basis in the Ravenna News Herald and the Greenville Pioneer. And we own other papers. We might even be talking to her about the future at some of our other papers. So I'm excited about this new relationship we're going to have with each other. And I look forward to you changing lives.
Me too.
Thank you so much. Well, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.